This video is going to be pick a sport and tell whether the shoulder or elbow joint is more important, and then provide a few reasons why. I think the sport I'll pick is boxing, and I think that for boxing, the shoulder is more important overall. Obviously, when you're throwing a punch, that's where it's getting launched from, is your shoulder. Your shoulder's gonna launch out, and then your arm's gonna follow in suit. You're gonna kind of throw it forward unless you're throwing with bad form, which would be an arm punch. Not only for throwing punches, but also for overhands. You need to cock your shoulder back and then throw that forward first as you go to throw an overhand, similar to how you throw a baseball. The elbow is important because you need to be able to extend, and like if you didn't have your shoulder or your elbow, if you didn't have a shoulder, you'd be dead. But if you didn't have your elbow, you'd be a cripple. Like in terms of boxing, it'd be really bad, but it's not game over. Whereas no shoulder, that means that arm is basically useless. No jab, no nothing. That arm's gone. So not only for punching, but also for defense. Everybody has heard of like a shoulder roll, but when a punch isn't coming right when it hits you, or as it's going to hit you, bring up your shoulder, and then as you get hit with it, instead of just blocking and bracing, you roll with it. So it mitigates the damage. It kind of rolls off of it. If it's somebody bigger or somebody who's just really throwing, you can only shoulder roll a few punches in a row, and then they'll either break past your shoulder, or they'll use their opposite hand, and then you can't shoulder the other side. You have to do something else with the other side. I'd say the shoulder is more important because it's the base for throwing punches. It's good for defense, and it's also where an insane amount of the torque comes in from. You could throw a hook if you didn't have an elbow, but you could still throw a pretty decent straight, I think, assuming that it was just cooked, or a pretty decent cross. Straight punches would be fine. Looping punches would be bad. I don't think you could do an uppercut without an elbow, or if it was bad, but you could definitely do it with shoulder. Any sort of defense is going to be a lot harder with only having, I feel like, elbows compared to shoulders. Because shoulders you can bring up, you can bring your arms up, but the problem is if we're saying it's one or the other, does that mean that this is like the use of the elbow? So if that is the case, I think you'd be cooked because you cannot have any defense if you only are blocking, your lower extremities if you can't really bring up your arms. But I'd say the shoulder is more important overall for punching because you can do it. You can't do it without a shoulder. You can kind of punch out an elbow. You can defend it decently well. You just hopefully with head movement blocking. But if it's gonna hit you, it's gonna be good to be able to clench your jaw and shoulder roll rather than just taking it. So those are my thoughts.